It would have been cool. It would have been really cool if in Legacies. I'll say in Legacy. It would have been really cool if in the originals. It would have been really cool if Henrik would have came back eventually. That would have been so tough. It would have been really cool if Henrik would have came back in the originals at some point. When we see Bonnie in season one of the Vampire Diaries, she is untapped, right? An untapped witch, right? But she actually, no, we don't even know because when we see her in season one, she's already tapping into that, right? Like she had just become a tapped witch, right? So she transformed from like this to that. Everyone else in season one of TVD is like 16 years old. The Elena and Caroline's like 16 in season one of TVD. You feel me? In the junior year. Wait, let me see. Yeah, they're in their junior year of high school. Bonnie is so they're born like 1992, right? Bonnie is born in 1993. You feel me? So what ends up happening is she's like 15 years old. You feel me? She's like a whole year. You dig me? Like she's like 15. Mind you, she takes Elena classes and Caroline classes stuff like that. She's like the youngest in their friend group. So she's like, how do I say it? How she's like. That's why it was so easy to put her with Jeremy, to be honest, because she's like always going to their age. You know what I mean? So she's like the youngest in their class type stuff. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. Okay, coolio. So she like at 15 years old when you're a witch, right? So outside of Hope Michelson, right? When Hope was a baby, she could wield magic. No, that wield magic. She could like actually utilize her powers. That was crazy, right? When she shut off the car with Cammy in it. But everyone else, when they're around 15 years old specifically, become a tapped witch. You feel me? They can tap into that magic. You feel me? They start tapping into that magic. That the witch in them, right? You feel me? And so Cole, outside of the entire originals family, right, would tap into that magic. And then we have, of course, Freya being taught by like Dahlia and stuff like that. But there's this whole other scenario where Henrik was like really young, so I guess he was like mad young. So I guess he was like, for all intents and purposes, I guess he could have tapped into that magic yet, which is fine. But and then he died that way too, right? He died, for all intents and purposes, human death, right? Oh man, we need a spin off with Henrik. Oh, that would be crazy, right? But then we have to dive into like peace and what that means, right? And then that's a whole different can of worms because we have to take it very logically here. Let's take it very logically. let's get nerdy, guys. 10,000 years ago, Kin and the rest of the gods, you feel me, outside of Ben, right? Because Ben is born on a mortal plane. But Kin and the rest of the gods pull up 10,000 years ago to our world. And, well, they pull up from their world, right? So, well, not even from their world, but from like other worlds, right? So, let's say this, right? Kin 10,000 plus years ago, Kin, Lin, Jin, you feel me, Kronos, etc., etc. They was all the way over here in their world, right? Peace, right? They crossed over. They got so well. Ken got so strong that he was able to maybe, most likely, create a portal or something, right? But he was able to traverse worlds, gang. You feel me? Traverse worlds. That's crazy. Entire worlds. So he went from his world, right? They probably left behind their parents. You feel me? Ken and Lynn probably left behind their parents or whatever in their world, but they went from their world, right, to another world, colonized, right? Can colonized, and they just repeated that cycle. Another world, another world, another world, another world, and that's 10,000 plus years ago. But then eventually they get to TBD world, right? Wham! Now they stepped onto our world, And so, if this is the trajectory, the natural inclination, right? This whole we crossed over into your world, right? That's exactly the phrasing that Lynn used. You feel me? 10,000 years ago, we crossed over into your world, right? So it's like a crossover situation, right? After, mind you, and she says that he colonized, you feel me, other worlds, et cetera, et cetera. Just went on colonizing and, you feel me, taking over. So this is the natural inclination of what happened. That would mean that peace is not some type of mystical thing, to be honest. It's merely a dimension situation. So say you die on our mortal plane, right? And you end up in limbo. That little white light thing you see at the end of the tunnel by the ferryman, right? There's the ferryman right here, and then behind the ferryman there's this white light thing, right? That thing over there is quite literally a portal for all intended purposes. A whole different, a ripped open portal, right, to traverse onto another world entirely. You dig me? So I don't know how this ties into what I wanted to say originally because I was talking about Henrik, honestly. But how does it tie in? You feel me? Oh yeah, because we can like, if we discuss, if we bring Henrik back at any point in this like ridiculous theory of like a spin-off TV show, we would have to traverse, we would have to fully flesh out, right? What this peace means. What does this afterlife entail? You know what I mean? And that's why I did the whole this situation. You feel me? Because we have to actually go through that because we have to get Henrik back from peace. You know what I mean? And mind you, that's just a presumption, right? That he was like a good kid or something. Cade has put people in hell for less, genuinely. So like that's the thing about Cade though. Like let's think about Ken. Let's think about Cade. Let's think about these people will put you in hell. You feel me? Send you the other way for anything, gang, anything. You feel me? Got to be something a little messed up, a little. You dig me? But like you can it can be by accident or what. Like they'll get you going. You feel me? No matter the age or anything. So you're cooked for real, for real. But whatever. Um, but yeah, we would just have to like dive deep into like peace, and for a lot of people, it's like ruining Santa. Right? People say, "Oh my gosh, vampires, witches, and werewolves, which is so cool," and then they made all these other creatures. To me, when I get to legacies and I see all these other creatures like gargoyles, leprechauns, sphinxes, you feel me? Oracles, right? I'm not like threatened. You feel me? I'm not like, oh my gosh, ah no, right? It's just so fake. It's just so that I feel like a lot of people are threatened by it, like by knowing the secret sauce, so to speak. Like once you realize that the only reason, the only reason that Malivore didn't go after the originals was because not because of their intellect or oh my gosh, you're just the greatest species on Earth, but because he literally couldn't go after the originals. You feel me? You realize that the originals is just a a, a piece on the chessboard, right? A pawn to be played, right? Another player on the chessboard. They're not like this all powerful family. When we're talking about um and it like Malivore plays a part like so heavily into like the TVDU as a whole, to the point where, mind you, he's only like he's like 200 years. He's very young. He's extremely young in comparison to um relatively to a lot of other species in general on the TVD universe, well, in the TVD universe. And so that's really the crazy part. Like all these other species, dragons, this, that, da da da. A lot of them were on the mortal plane. A lot of them were also created to be consumed by Malivore instantaneously, right? So we have like two different type of creatures, right? The ones that was created to be consumed, right? And the other ones that were naturally on the mortal plane. You feel me? And so we're dealing with like both these. There's a lot more creatures in this world, right? And this was the person that was a harbinger of all these creatures. So when people ask about like, oh my gosh, da, 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 what happened to all these creatures? People go on and on about vampires, werewolves, and witches for like a trillion seasons in the TVD world, right? If you're part of the fandom. It seems like you have everything under control, right? Oh my gosh, you know vampires exist. We know werewolves exist. We know witches exist. You can mix a witch with a vampire, create a heretic. You can mix a vampire and a werewolf, create a hybrid. You can mix a vampire, werewolf, and a witch, create a tribrid. You know what I mean? People love that type of stuff. Even people love think they knowing the lore, but when you actually realize that there's way more creatures. There's way more to the lore than just, oh my gosh, vampires, werewolves, and witches. You know what I mean? And mixing them together. You feel me? And knowing like the different names of those creatures. That's the bottom of the barrel, dog. That's the bottom of the barrel. You know what I mean? Witches aren't really the bottom of the barrel, but like I'm talking about like that's like the basics. That's like lore 101 right there. You feel me? Knowing the siphoner, knowing the heretic, knowing the tribrid hybrid. You know what I mean? That's basic lore 101. You feel me? This stuff right here is the magnum opus. You feel me? This stuff right here takes attention to detail, right? You feel me? Over here is where all the goriness. This is like Pandora's box, right? And my thing about saying that, like I said again, is that people like once they people don't people think they know people want to think that they know the lore, so they would have loved just this lore right here. But once you bring in something like this, once you explain to them why you why dragons you why you heard about dragons in the world that you live in, you feel me, and why that they heard about dragons, you feel me, in the world, like folktale and myth, you feel me, why they know about dragons. Once you explain to them that, yeah, these things actually did exist, but something got in the way. You know what I mean? But something got in the way. That's all it was. It makes so much sense though. Vampires, werewolves, witches to the left, right? Everything else to the right. You know what I mean? Vampires, werewolves, and witches to the left, right? And somehow they are the only three things that like survive the tell of time as far as like actually being able to be seen. But they all, without question, come from folktale and myth. Witches, werewolves, vampires. You feel me? They all come from, and somehow this is more believable, right? To the left is more believable than what's to the right. They're all folktale and myth, right? When you go to the right, you feel me? Over here is like it's all type of stuff, and I love it because these creatures, and I love it so much because the older they are, it's just like, yeah, my dog. You feel me? It's like that's my dog. You feel me? Because relatively, to be honest, these people over here are just like relatively newish. You feel me? Because we have like the witches and the vampires and the werewolves. Like vampires and werewolves are like very young, very young. They're like very young. You feel me? They're like at most what 1,500 years old at max. Like vampires and werewolves, their the entire exist or their existence is quite literally 1,500. Like the highest existence. You feel me? Like like vampires is 1,000 years old, right? Like max. You feel me? Vampires. But then when you go to like werewolves, okay, cool. We have like they started 1,500 years old, and that's not old. That's not old. You feel me? That's not dragon old. You dig me? Like that's not, you feel me? So me personally, I'm an origin person. I'm an age person, I suppose. I'm a, oh my gosh, let's get to the root of this. You know what I mean? To be honest. And so that's why when I see somebody like a Silas, right? We got the witches, they 2,000 with it. You feel me? We got the mind you, we got the witches, right? Ben gives magic to the villagers, and that's when like the whole witch stuff situation goes about, right? But then again, that's not when it happens, to be honest, because it's so weird, man. Different forms are created, different type of beings are created, and then it dilutes down to like a human with powers, just a human with powers, right? Or a human with mind powers, right? And then that psychic energy, right? That first psychic, right? He dies, and then oh my gosh, years later, now there's humans with powers to wield, boom, and now like what used to be just mind stuff becomes like Okay, now I'm able to wield stuff with my hands, and I'm able to do this and da da da. Yo, it's so much. Yo, it's so much. It's so much. And how does Henrik tie into all of this, right? Henrik. They brought back so many people in the originals. They really talked about Henrik. And that's what I mean, though, right? I'm about to probably drag on about how the originals is literally just fan service, right? Because they can amplify gore 24/7. They can put like the relationship aspect almost on the back burner, almost. You still get a glimpse of like a Camille and a Klaus, or an Elijah and a Haley, right? Or a Elijah and a Haley and a Michelson, or a Haley and a Jackson, or Rebecca and Marcel, right? So actually, they do like this even, kind of even, right? Where they have the romance fan service and they have the gore fan service, right? And but you know that it's all like superficial. You know that it's all just a show because they never mention Henrik for real, for real. They rarely mention Henrik, like ever, ever. You dig me? Like ever. And that's my direct correlation to that, to why it being fan service, because oh my gosh, it's about the originals and the original family, right? You feel me? We hear Finn name a trillion times, Michael name a trillion times. You feel me? But nope, Henrik, nah. You feel me? Although he was once a part of the family, genuinely. Moment of silence for Henrik. But anyways, I don't want to draw this out any longer. Uh, like the video, subscribe, turn on post notification bells if you like talking head TVD videos. I'm probably gonna like mix it up with some like other stuff if I ever decide to watch like a Teen Wolf again. To be honest, that show is so ridiculous. I find it to be absolutely ridiculous. And but then again, I love the Deucalion of it all. I love like the alpha pack of it all. You know what I mean? I love that stuff so much. But overall, it's just so ridiculous, dude. Like it's actually unbearable. It's actually unbearable. Like it's actually like what people think Legacies is how I see Teen Wolf. But luckily for you guys, I loved Legacies. You feel me? So I can appreciate certain aspects of Teen Wolf, like the Deucalion and the Alpha Pack, right? Um, but yeah, that's so funny. That's so funny to me, yo. Because the way that a lot of people see these other shows is how I see the way a lot of people see Legacies is how I see these other shows, like the 100, right? That's how I see like the way people see Legacy is how I see the 100. Like it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The whole Alexa and Clark situation. Like I'm all over the place. That's not why you came to watch the video. Bye.